Chapter 1173. Sects were different from dynasties. This assessment was organized by sects, so they naturally had the most number of slots. For sects, they did not have a problem with the number of slots. As long as they could pass the assessment, they would be qualified. However, it was definitely not an easy task to pass this test. This was completely dependent on one's own strength. No matter who it was, if they could not pass the assessment, then they would not be qualified. This was because every sect would not let a single cultivator affect their reputation. Hearing Di Baichen's words, everyone was relieved. This meant that as long as they were strong enough, they would be able to participate in the assessment together. There are also many opportunities in the pocket dimension. It is said that this pocket dimension was originally a part of the Xingxian continent. Once, a cultivator found an inheritance in the pocket dimension and his strength increased rapidly. Not only that, the pocket dimension has existed for many years. All kinds of medicinal herbs, ores, and heavenly treasures may exist. If you are lucky, you might be able to find a treasure. Di Baichen had a warm and charming smile on his face. This was one of the advantages of the pocket dimension. Inside the house, Bailey Hongzhuang sat in front of Di Baichen. Her beautiful face was flushed red from drinking, but her black eyes were still shining. Baichen, did you see the sect leader today? Her delicate and beautiful face showed a trace of concern. She had not heard any news about the sect leader today and was worried that Di Baichen would not be able to see the sect leader. Di Baichen's lips curled into his signature devilish smile. My wife is becoming more and more concerned about me. Seeing Di Baichen's teasing look, Bailey Hongzhuang's face turned serious. If you continue to be like this, I won't talk to you anymore. Seeing this, Di Baichen hurriedly said, my wife is mighty. Your husband won't joke around anymore. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled again. In terms of teasing, she could not compare to Di Baichen. However, when it came to putting on a serious face, Di Baichen was not her opponent. Everything is just as my wife expected. Di Baichen curled his seductive lips. I saw Master. Bailey Hongzhuang's dark and bright eyes were filled with joy. Her original worries also quietly dissipated. That's good. Wife, don't you want to know what Master thinks of you? Di Baichen blinked. His deep and charming eyes were filled with infinite charm. He only felt that the Hongzhuang in front of him was exceptionally cute. This little woman was especially concerned about his affairs, and he was very touched. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly taken aback, but she pretended to be nonchalant and asked, what's your evaluation? Di Baichen knew that Bailey Hongzhuang's indifferent look was a disguise, but he didn't expose her. He smiled and said, Master said that I have good taste. As he spoke, Di Baichen's expression revealed a hint of pride. He also felt that he had good taste. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to find such a treasure like his wife in the vast sea of people. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips unconsciously curled. Although the sect master had already expressed his thoughts when he saw her, she still felt very happy to hear it again. Di Baichen pulled Bailey Hongzhuang's hand, his eyes filled with deep affection. Wife, you can rest assured now. I said that Master doesn't have any prejudice against family background. Hongzhuang had been worried about this problem before. He said that it wasn't a problem, but it still couldn't dispel the worry in Hongzhuang's heart. Chapter 1174. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a smile, clear and moving. She didn't say anything, but her smile had already explained everything. Wife, tomorrow is the day of the assessment. At that time, there will be other cultivators besides you who will be participating in the assessment. Many people in the sect will be paying attention to this matter. I will accompany you to the location of the assessment at that time. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly, her eyes flashing with curiosity. How do you guys do the assessment? Wife, how do you think we should do the assessment? Di Baichen asked back. I heard that the assessment in the dynasty is a competition, and the strongest cultivators will be able to get a spot. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. Thinking about it, the majority of people used this assessment method, which was the simplest and most direct. Di Beichen's lips curled into a devilish arc, and he chuckled, that is the way the dynasty does it. There is a certain flaw in it, and the sect selection method is different. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang only looked at Di Beichen, wanting to know what Di Beichen meant by a better method. Tomorrow, you will enter an assessment array, and there will be all kinds of environments and all kinds of monsters inside. The longer you can last, the more outstanding your ability will be. Not only us, many sects use this selection method. Di Beichen's eyes were filled with wisdom. The selection method used by the dynasty does indeed select the strongest cultivators, but in our opinion, having the highest cultivation and the strongest strength doesn't mean that one's ability is the strongest. In the small world, one may encounter all kinds of dangerous situations, which those cultivators who are only good at fighting in the arena will not be able to deal with. Courage and adaptability are also extremely important factors, so our selection will be even more perfect. Hearing Di Beichen's words, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately understood. What Di Beichen said was right. She had seen many cultivators perform extremely well on the battle stage, but their reactions in real danger were extremely bad. This was just like Lu Qingyue. Her cultivation was not weak. On the contrary, it was very outstanding. However, in the face of danger, she could not display her true strength. If such a cultivator were to go to a small world, their survival rate would be extremely low. Come to think of it, the big sects organized the assessment tournament to let the young cultivators go to the small world to kill the demonic beasts and improve their strength at the same time. It was not to send everyone to their deaths. So, this test is an illusion array? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. Di Beichen nodded slightly. Not bad. The methods of the sect are truly different from the rest. Her deep phoenix eyes were filled with emotion and amazement. Just from Di Beichen's expression, she could tell that this illusory formation was not simple. 1,000 years ago, the sects and aristocratic families did not have this kind of selection method. She was very curious, wondering what kind of illusory formation this was. Seeing the curiosity on Bailey Hongzhuang's face, Di Beichen chuckled. Wife, you will be able to see it tomorrow. Although you know it is an environment, the effect is extremely realistic. Many cultivators find it difficult to face that scene when they use it for the first time. However, when it is used in the assessment, all cultivators will be taking the assessment for the first time. You have to be mentally prepared. I understand. Bailey Hongzhuang blinked. Just from Di Beichen's words, she could guess some clues. Chapter 1175. The next day, the sky was clear and the sun was just right. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others got up early. Today was the day of the competition and they were all fully prepared. Di Beichen saw that everyone was ready and immediately smiled, let's go to the assessment array together. Everyone nodded and immediately followed Di Beichen in the direction of the assessment array. Along the way, many cultivators were surprised when they saw Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Originally, they didn't know why this group of unfamiliar cultivators came to Tiangang sect. Now that they saw the young sect master leading them in the direction of the assessment array, they understood. It turned out that these cultivators were all here to participate in the assessment competition. I heard that yesterday's senior sister Han had a conflict with Bailey Hongzhuang again. Now it seems that the young sect master is really protective of Bailey Hongzhuang. Senior sister Han has completely lost her previous status. Isn't that so? Didn't you see that senior sister Han rarely appears in front of us recently? Isn't it because of this matter that she doesn't want to come out to meet people? Everyone's eyes were locked on Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. During this period, Bailey Hongzhuang was the focus of their attention. Han Xiling had been guarding Di Beichen for so many years, but Di Beichen's heart was completely on Bailey Hongzhuang. Whether it was from the point of envy or other aspects, Bailey Hongzhuang made it impossible for them not to pay attention to her. Bailey Hongzhuang walked beside Di Beichen indifferently. All the discussions would disappear when she returned from the assessment competition. Not long after, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others arrived at the location of the assessment array. At a glance, the assessment array was filled with cultivators, but most of them were here to watch the fun. There were only about 20 cultivators who were really going to take the assessment. According to Di Beichen's introduction, the cultivators here were recommended by some people with high status in Tiangang sect. In fact, the cultivators who entered the assessment competition from the sect would have a higher status in the assessment competition. They were the real seeded contestants. Han Xiling came to the assessment array early in the morning. Since Bailey Hongzhuang announced that she wanted to take part in the assessment competition, then she had to go through the assessment array. She was very curious. If Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't even qualify for the assessment competition, then it would be a real joke. That day in the meeting hall, Bailey Hongzhuang was very clear. Therefore, not only Han Xiling, but the Great Elder and the 4 palace masters were also there. After Bailey Hongzhuang, Bailey Hongzhuang, Bailey, and Bailey Hongzhuang Hongzhuang, Bailey Hongzhuang seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's appearance, Han Xiling's gaze was fixed on Bailey Hongzhuang. The coldness and resentment in his eyes were obvious. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Han Xiling's face and then stopped paying attention. She was surprised by Han Xiling's persistence. Young sect leader. Everyone bowed when they saw Di Beichen. Di Beichen nodded. His handsome face was dignified. His gaze then fell on the cultivators who were preparing to take the assessment. Today is the day of the competition. I hope everyone can perform well and represent Tiangang sect in the assessment competition. Chapter 1176. All the female disciples present had no resistance when they saw Di Beichen's handsome face. What's more, Di Beichen was the young lord of Tiangang sect. However, the appearance of Bailey Hongzhuang made the fantasy in everyone's heart fade a little, but this still did not stop their fantasy. Looking at the appearance of everyone's fighting spirit, Di Beichen was also very satisfied. His eyes then fell on Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. He smiled and said, "You also go to the team to prepare for the assessment later." Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others immediately walked into the team. In front of the disciples of Tiangang sect, they would maintain absolute respect for Di Beichen. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others' eyes couldn't help but fall on the illusion array in front of them. The scope of this array was not small. It had not been opened yet, but they could notice that there were many mysterious totems in the center of the array. Xia Jiqing curiously looked at the assessment array. "This is the illusion array that we are going to take the assessment in a while." Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Yes, it said that this illusion array can simulate all kinds of demonic beasts. When you take the test, you must control the fear in your heart and display your strongest strength. Fear was the most difficult emotion for human beings to overcome. Even if it was an illusion array, the feeling was still extremely realistic. Except for the pain, everything else was the same. Therefore, it was not a simple matter to pass this assessment. Listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the faces of Xia Jiqing and the others all showed a serious look. Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang both explained the illusion array to them. They also understood the content of the assessment and kept convincing themselves that everything they would face later was fake. However, no matter how well they convinced themselves now, it may not be as they wished during the assessment. The cultivators who were waiting for the assessment, after seeing Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, had a look of dissatisfaction in their eyes. There had always been a lot of capable people in Tiangang sect. Even though the people from the special enrollment class had only shown their faces once when they followed He Mu to Tiangang sect, everyone had already found out their identities. He was a cultivator from the special enrollment class of the Kanglin College and a friend of Bailey Hongzhuang. The Azure Water School did have a certain reputation, but that influence was only within the dynasty. For the sects, the reputation of the Azure Water School was obviously not loud enough. In their opinion, the reason why this group of cultivators from the special enrollment class could come to Tiangang's sect for the assessment was entirely because of Bailey Hongzhuang. This Bailey Hongzhuang really dares to do anything just because the young lord likes her. She came to Tiangang's sect to take the assessment by herself, but she even brought her friends here. The young lord also allowed her to fool around. It's really amazing. No choice, who asked young sect master to like it. However, if these people don't perform well and can't even obtain a single spot, then that would be really funny. Everyone was talking about it. In fact, almost no one present was optimistic about the strength of Xia Jiqing and the others. In my opinion, this possibility is very high. Han Xiling chuckled, and the words he said did not give Bailey Hongzhuang any face. When she knew that Xia Jiqing and the others came here to take the assessment, she felt that Bailey Hongzhuang had dug a hole for herself. Chapter 1177. Originally, the discussion of the surrounding cultivators had already made Gong Xiaoqing and the others' faces very ugly. They also knew that the crowd was right. The reason why they could come to Tiangang's sect to participate in the assessment was indeed because of Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen. However, the crowd's denial of their strength was something they would not admit. Even if they were not born in a famous sect, they still had confidence in their own strength. Indeed, they may not be the strongest here, but they also had confidence that they would not be the worst. The other people's comments were fine, but Han Xiling actually took the initiative to find trouble, which was not something they could tolerate. The dignified young lady of Tiangang's sect doesn't even have a little tolerance. Zhang Yunfeng coldly glanced at Han Xiling. Since Han Xiling was so rude to them, she naturally would not be polite to Han Xiling. This woman not only has no tolerance, but is simply narrow-minded. Why bother with her? Xia Jiqing coldly snorted. She really did not like Han Xiling, but this woman liked to jump in front of them. Gong Xiaoqing, Dong Fangyu, and the other men just faintly looked at Han Xiling. They could not argue with a woman, but the disgust on their faces was still obvious. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. Han Xiling usually found trouble with her, but now she also ridiculed Xia Jiqing and the others. It was too much. You really have a kind of magic that makes people hate you as soon as you open your mouth. As soon as Bailey Hongzhuang opened her mouth, her words did not give Han Xiling any face. The smile on Han Xiling's face suddenly froze, followed by a touch of anger from her eyes, revealing an unspeakable anger. Bailey Hongzhuang, do you really think you are so great? Han Xiling looked at Bailey Hongzhuang angrily. She couldn't bear the thought of Bailey Hongzhuang acting all high and mighty in front of her. When Han Hongyi saw the conflict between Han Xiling and Bailey Hongzhuang, he couldn't help but glance at Han Xiling. What happened before could be hidden from others, but not from him. Before, there was no one on the side, so if there was a conflict, then it was fine. Now there were so many people here, if Xiling had a conflict with Bailey Hongzhuang, it would damage her reputation. Noticing the warning in Han Hongyi's eyes, Han Xiling could only suppress his dissatisfaction for the time being. Looking at Han Xiling's repressed and resentful expression, Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved slightly. She then turned around, too lazy to talk to Han Xiling. When Di Beichen saw the 4 palace masters and the great elder present, he couldn't help but chuckle. I didn't expect that today's assessment would attract everyone. What young lord is concerned about, we are naturally also very concerned. Xiao Hongzhen laughed aloud. He had been looking for an opportunity to take down Di Beichen. If Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't pass the assessment array today, it was naturally an excellent opportunity. Di Beichen glanced at Xiao Hongzhen indifferently. From the moment Xiao Hongzhen appeared here, he already understood what Xiao Hongzhen was planning. However, he believed in Hongzhuang's strength. Just from Hongzhuang's performance in the Bloody Abyss, he could see that Hongzhuang never lacked courage, perseverance and fighting strength. Although it was the first time she came into contact with the assessment array, he believed that Hong Zhuang would be able to do well. Chapter 1178. Di Beichen nodded, but the words he said were not consistent with Qin Ai's question. They are all good friends I met at the Kangwen College. I think the 4 palace masters may not know that I am also a student of the Kangwen College's special enrollment class. With Di Beichen's voice falling, everyone was stunned for a moment. They looked at Di Beichen strangely. They really didn't know much about this matter. In fact, Di Beichen went to the Kangwen College after returning to the sect. Before Di Beichen returned to the sect, everyone often paid attention to Di Beichen's movements. After Di Beichen had stood up again, they didn't need to pay as much attention as before. However, they didn't expect that Di Beichen would also become a student of the Kangwen College's special enrollment class. This was really incredible. The people who had originally ridiculed the Kangwen College for not being able to stand in public also shut their mouths after hearing Di Beichen's words. Even the young sect master was a student of the Kangwen College. How could they dare to say anything bad about the Kangwen College? Han Shiling's face was ugly. Big Brother Di's words were obviously protecting Bailey Hongzhuang. In fact, Di Beichen was protecting Bailey Hongzhuang. He specifically emphasized the fact that Xia Jiqing and others were his friends so that everyone could not blame Bailey Hongzhuang. These people were invited by him and were also his friends. They had nothing to do with Bailey Hongzhuang. If someone wanted to find trouble, they could just come to him. It turns out that the young sect master has also been to the Kangwen College. The young sect master's friends are also friends of the Tiangang sect. Qin Ai smiled faintly. When he spoke, his eyes fell on Xiao Hongzhen and Jiang Yi. He deliberately asked this question to prevent Xiao Hongzhen and Jiang Yi from finding problems with him again. Xiao Hongzhen and Jiang Yi looked at Qin Ai coldly. Qin Ai was their stumbling block. Bailey Hongzhuang, Xia Jiqing and the others also smiled after hearing Di Beichen's words. With Di Beichen around, things are indeed different. That Han Shiling can only obediently shut up. Xia Jiqing smiled and winked at Bailey Hongzhuang. Originally, she was worried that Hongzhuang would be bullied by Han Shiling here. Now that she saw how Di Beichen was protecting Bailey Hongzhuang, she knew that no one could do anything to Hongzhuang as long as Di Beichen was there. A bright smile appeared on her alluring face. It was like hundreds of flowers were blooming, gorgeous and beautiful. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang smile, the eyes of many cultivators present condensed on Bailey Hongzhuang's body. Bailey Hongzhuang's beauty could not be ignored by anyone. Originally, she just stood quietly and attracted everyone's attention. Now, looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's smile, everyone couldn't take their eyes off her. Their eyes were full of intoxication and shock. No wonder the young sect master likes Bailey Hongzhuang. Such a woman, no man can resist her charm. Although Han Shiling is very beautiful, compared with Bailey Hongzhuang, there is still a big gap. The eyes of the male disciples present were full of admiration. Only as men, they understood the thoughts of the young sect master better. Listening to the emotions of the male disciples, Han Shiling's face became gloomy again. She was recognized by everyone as not as beautiful as Bailey Hongzhuang. Chapter 1179. Young master, since everyone is here, why don't we start first? Gu Jingqing suggested. Di Beichen nodded slightly, his noble and handsome face full of majesty. The qualification test for the assessment competition begins now. As Di Beichen's voice fell, the elder on the side immediately understood and his eyes fell on the group of cultivators who were preparing for the assessment. If you want to qualify for the assessment competition, you need to pass through the assessment array. As long as you can persist in the assessment array for 3 incense sticks, you will be qualified. If it is less than 3 incense sticks, you will be disqualified. In this assessment array, you will be in the mountains and all kinds of monsters will appear. You need to deal with them on your own. Once you die in the illusion, you will automatically withdraw from the assessment array. Is there anything you don't understand? The elder concisely explained the situation of the assessment array. Many foreign cultivators didn't understand what the assessment array was, so it was necessary to introduce its functions. No. Everyone shook their heads. They had a certain understanding of the assessment array from various channels before, but they had never really seen it. Now, 5 people in a group enter the assessment array. As the elder's voice fell, the 5 cultivators at the front hesitated for a moment before walking into the assessment array. They only saw the elder put a spirit stone next to the assessment array, and then the array started. Everyone only saw a ray of light enveloping the 5 people in the array, and from the facial expressions of these cultivators, they could see that they had fallen into the illusion array. The situation inside the assessment array is really bloody and violent. When I entered the assessment array for the first time, I was scared out of my wits. Yes, especially the first time you went in, your results were the worst. It is not easy to persist for 3 incense sticks. Although the strength of the cultivators who can come to the sect for the qualification test is good, there are not many cultivators who represent the sect to participate in the assessment competition every year. I think this time will be no exception. I am most curious about what results Bailey Hongzhuang and the group of cultivators from the Azure Water School will get. If the duration is too short, it will be embarrassing. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were sizing up the situation of the cultivators in the assessment array when the discussions of the surrounding cultivators gradually entered their ears. After all, their appearance today was already a hot topic. After hearing these words, Xia Jiqing and the others couldn't help but look dignified. Before coming to Tiangang's sect, they didn't think too much about the problem. They just felt that this was a good opportunity. However, after facing the current situation, they realized that everything was not that simple. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were also under a lot of pressure to be able to come here for the assessment. If their performance today was bad, not only would they be laughed at by everyone, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen would also be implicated by them. This was not something they wanted to see. Gong Xiaoqing, Dong Fangyu, and the others looked at each other. They all felt the existence of this pressure. In a situation where no one was optimistic about them, they could only encourage themselves. Only if they performed well enough would they be able to shut all these cultivators up. Chapter 1180. Survival of the fittest was the rule of the Xingxian continent. All respect must be earned with their own strength. They must work hard to obtain the qualifications to participate in the assessment competition. Not only for themselves, but also for Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen, for their trust. Everyone's hearts were filled with anger. Even if everyone was not optimistic about them, they would believe in their own strength. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyebrows wrinkled slightly. She didn't think that these cultivators would keep saying such things. In fact, when Di Beichen first proposed it, she did not think that there would be such problems. Now listening to the ridicule of these cultivators, she only felt that it was particularly harsh, and she also felt sorry for Xia Jiqing and the others. If it were not for her inviting Jiqing and the others to come to Tiangang's sect together, they would not have to endure such humiliation. I'm sorry for everyone. Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly, her delicate face full of guilt. You don't need to pay attention to these words. Just pretend you didn't hear it for the time being. Don't feel pressure. These remarks were not something she could stop as soon as she opened her mouth. She did not want Xia Jiqing and the others to bear all the unnecessary pressure because of her. Hongzhuang, this is not your fault. You don't have to apologize. After hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Xia Jiqing was the first to answer. That's right. These words aren't completely targeted at us. Even other cultivators would have heard similar words under such circumstances. Dong Fengyu's face was filled with a gentle smile. Obviously, he did not put these problems in his eyes. We are not so fragile. Gong Xiaoqing's voice followed. Bailey Hongzhuang turned her eyes and saw that Xia Jiqing and the others' faces were all showing an indifferent smile. Her worried heart was completely put down. Indeed, she underestimated the strength of Gong Xiaoqing and the others' hearts. Immediately afterward, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at the assessment array again. As time gradually passed, everyone noticed that the faces of the cultivators in the assessment array gradually turned pale, and beads of sweat gradually appeared on their foreheads. Their expressions were also different from each other. Some of them gritted their teeth and persevered, while others had looks of fear on their faces. Beside the test array, an incense stick was burning continuously. There was also a cultivator who was paying attention to the incense stick. Once it burned out, he would immediately light up the second incense stick. Look, the cultivator on the left can't hold on any longer, a cultivator's voice suddenly rang out. As the voice rang out, everyone looked at the cultivator on the left. They saw that the cultivator's face was getting paler and paler, and his eyes were filled with intense fear. Following that, the cultivator suddenly exited the assessment formation. He panted heavily and fell heavily to the ground with a pale face. A cultivator immediately walked to the cultivator's side and said, "It's all right now. Wake up." Hearing this, the cultivator was stunned for a moment. After seeing the surrounding cultivators, he revealed a look of understanding. However, the fear in his eyes did not disappear. Clearly, he had encountered something extremely frightening. How long did I last? After resting for a while, the cultivator remembered the most important thing and could not help but ask. Chapter 1181. After knowing that he had only persisted for a stick of incense's time, the cultivator's face immediately became ugly. To qualify for the assessment, one needed to persist in the assessment array for 3 sticks of incense's time. However, he only persisted for a stick of incense's time. When he turned his head, he found that he was the first cultivator who could not hold on. For a time, feeling the eyes of everyone again, the cultivator only felt his face turn red. He was full of confidence before, but he did not expect his strength to be so weak. It seems that the scene seen in the assessment is really terrifying. This cultivator is scared to such an extent. Xia Jiqing's face was full of emotion. She believed that the cultivators who had reached this step would have a lot of experience. It could even scare him to such an extent. It could be seen how terrifying the scene he encountered was. We are likely to face the scene of our own death. His reaction is not strange. The dark eyes flashed with wisdom. There was nothing more terrifying than one's own death. In the face of one's own death, no matter which cultivator, it was impossible to let go. Xia Jiqing suddenly realized that if it was really such a situation, then it was really difficult to deal with. Not long after the first cultivator came out, another cultivator also withdrew from the assessment array. The reaction of this cultivator was the same as the first cultivator, and even when he withdrew, there was a scream. If the disciples of Tiangang Zong did not immediately go forward to remind this cultivator, it was afraid that this cultivator would not have recovered for a while. It is really not easy to participate in the assessment array. In less than 2 sticks of incense's time, 2 cultivators were eliminated. Cui Haoyan's eyes were filled with a trace of amazement. These cultivators were different from them. They had the opportunity to come to Tiangang Zone to participate in the assessment array because they knew Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen. However, these cultivators had the opportunity to represent Tiangang Zone to participate in the assessment array. It could be seen that their strength was definitely not weak. However, these cultivators could not pass, and the pressure on them was even greater. With Cui Haoyan's voice falling, Gong Xiaoqing and the others did not speak, but their expressions became more dignified. After the time it took for 2 incense sticks to burn, another cultivator withdrew from the assessment array. Only 2 cultivators remained. As the second incense stick burned out, everyone could guess the result in their hearts. 2 out of 5 cultivators were qualified to participate in the assessment competition. This was a good result. However, just as the second incense stick was about to burn out, one of the cultivators was forced to retreat. Seeing this, everyone couldn't help but sigh. This cultivator was just a little bit away from obtaining the qualifications. They didn't expect that he would fail at the last moment. It was truly too unfortunate. This cultivator's eyes were filled with annoyance when he realized that he had missed the opportunity by a hair's breadth. Compared to the 3 cultivators who had failed earlier, he was undoubtedly the most depressed one. In the end, only one of the 5 cultivators managed to hold on for the duration of 3 incense sticks. However, this cultivator exited the assessment array not long after the 4th incense stick was lit. After this cultivator knew that he had succeeded, his face was pale, but his expression was filled with pride and joy. This was the embodiment of strength. Chapter 1182. The second batch of cultivators enter the assessment array. After the end of the first round of assessment, the elder's voice was heard. Immediately after, the second batch of cultivators immediately entered the assessment array and began the assessment. The results of the second batch of cultivators were slightly better than the first batch of cultivators. 2 cultivators were qualified. Every cultivator who was qualified to participate in the assessment stood at the side and received the envious gazes of the crowd. This was the treatment enjoyed by the victors. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest stood quietly at the back. They came relatively late, so they took the assessment very late. After waiting for a while, it was finally their turn. Cui Haoyan and Zhang Yunfeng glanced at Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest and said, "Let's go in first." Hearing that, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest looked at each other and nodded immediately. "Good luck." Cui Haoyan and Zhang Yunfeng nodded. "We will." Immediately after, the 2 of them walked into the assessment array with the other 3 cultivators. As Cui Haoyan and Lu Xian took part in the assessment, the surrounding cultivators were all watching their performance. They wanted to know how the 2 of them would fare. Chapter 1183. Zhang Yinfeng's eyes were filled with an incredible look. "But I feel like I've been in there for a long time." She only felt that she had been in the assessment array for a long time. She didn't expect that it was only a stick of incense worth of time. It really gave her a big blow. After really understanding the situation in the assessment array, she understood how difficult it was to persist for 3 sticks of incense worth of time. Bailey Hongzhuang and Xia Zhiqing helped Zhang Yunfeng up. Although this result was not what they had expected, they had no other choice at this point. Seeing Zhang Yunfeng being the first to be eliminated, Han Shiling's lips couldn't help but reveal a smile. He immediately looked at Tao Tsongrong next to him. Tao Tsongrong immediately understood and immediately chuckled. "I said that the strength of the cultivators of the Kanglan College is not good enough. The first to be eliminated, I thought they were great." As Tao Tsongrong took the lead to talk about this issue, the surrounding cultivators also nodded. Yes, although the Kanglan College has a good reputation in the dynasty, it is still not good enough here. Zhang Yunfeng was the first to be eliminated. In my opinion, the performance of the other cultivators of the Kanglan College will not be much better. Listening to the ridicule of the crowd, Zhang Yunfeng's face was ugly to the extreme. There was also a hint of shame. She really didn't expect such a situation. "I'm sorry, I implicated everyone," Zhang Yunfeng said with shame. She wanted to perform well for herself, for the Kanglan College and for her friends. She didn't expect her performance to be so bad, implicating everyone to be ridiculed by others. Looking at Zhang Yunfeng's ashamed appearance, everyone quickly said, "This is nothing, you don't have to take it to heart." However, at this moment, Cui Haoyan and another cultivator withdrew from the assessment array at the same time. Both of them had persisted for 2 sticks of incense worth of time. There was still a long time before the 3rd stick of incense burned out. Cui Haoyan's face was also pale, but he quickly recovered his consciousness. After learning that he had never heard of the assessment, his face was a little ugly. One after another, in my opinion, the cultivators of the Kanglin College will not be able to pass. Han Shiling's mouth evoked a sneer. It seemed that she really had a good show to watch today. Just from the situation of Cui Haoyan and Zhang Yunfeng, she could predict the fate of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. If Bailey Hongzhuang did not pass, or the cultivators of the Kanglin College were all wiped out, then she wanted to see how arrogant Bailey Hongzhuang could be. Even if Brother Di was willing to protect her, she would still be despised by everyone. Young Master, the cultivators of the Kanglin College. Xiao Hongzhen felt a burst of joy in his heart, but on the surface, he pretended to be very helpless. He couldn't help but look at Di Beichen. Di. Young Master, even if you have a good relationship with them, as the young master, you can't be too emotional. Jiang Yi sighed, his words revealing the meaning of teaching Di Beichen how to do things. Palace Master Xiao, Palace Master Jiang, this assessment is not yet the end, you don't have to worry. Qin Ai slowly said. Chapter 1184. Looking at Di Beichen's indifferent look, Xiao Hongzhen and Jiang Yi's eyes showed a trace of displeasure, but they did not continue to say anything. In their opinion, Di Beichen was just putting up a strong front. Later, once Bailey Hongzhuang and the others failed, it would be even more difficult for Di Beichen to step down. Young sect master, in my opinion, you seem to be too protective of Bailey Hongzhuang, right? At this moment, a man arrived late and slowly appeared in everyone's line of sight. With the appearance of this man, everyone's eyes fell on him, and their expressions revealed a somewhat unusual meaning. Bailey Hongzhuang also noticed this man. She saw that the man was wearing a black robe, and his age was about the same as Di Beichen's. He was handsome and could be said to be romantic and elegant, but there was still a big gap between his appearance and Di Beichen's evildoers. However, Bailey Hongzhuang noticed that a malicious light flashed inadvertently in this man's eyes. Even if his romantic and elegant appearance concealed it very well, the moment he saw Di Beichen, this malicious light still uncontrollably showed itself. Almost immediately, Bailey Hongzhuang had already confirmed the man's identity, Ji Yangxia. Earlier, she had already heard that Xiao Hongzhen and Jiang Yi had been constantly finding trouble with Di Beichen, wanting to push Di Beichen down from the position of young sect master in order to push Ji Yangxia to the position of young sect master. However, she had never seen Ji Yangxia since she came to Tiangang sect. She did not expect to see him on such an occasion. This Ji Yangxia is really arrogant. Even Di Beichen came early, but he still dares to come late. Xiao He frowned. Just looking at Ji Yangxia's smile made it feel uncomfortable. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a mocking smile. This guy deliberately came late. Di Beichen's sudden return must have given him a big blow. She could imagine how glorious Ji Yangxia was in Tiangang's sect and Di Beichen was not around. However, once Di Beichen returned, Ji Yangxia no longer regained his original position. It was tantamount to suddenly falling from the clouds. Today, Ji Yangxia had appeared again, presumably to laugh at them. Speaking of which, these two temple masters and Ji Yangxia were all menacing. That's true. Xiao Bai chuckled. When the tiger is not around, the monkey is king. When Di Beichen comes later, Ji Yangxia will be beaten back to his original state. Ji Yangxia slowly walked in front of Di Beichen. Although he called Di Beichen young sect master, his arrogant appearance showed that he was not really convinced. Everyone looked at Di Beichen and Ji Yangxia. The conflict between these two people was well known in Tiangang sect. Now that Ji Yangxia was the first to make trouble, no one knew how the young sect master would solve it. Di Beichen glanced at Ji Yangxia indifferently. The corners of his lips curled into a devilish smile again, and his expression was somewhat disdainful. As soon as she saw Di Beichen's expression, Bailey Hongzhuang knew that Ji Yangxia was going to suffer a blow. What does it have to do with you that I'm protecting my wife? Di Beichen looked at Ji Yangxia lazily. His low and magnetic voice was full of impudence and dominance. It was just Ji Yangxia. If it were not for the support of the two temple masters, he would have completely crippled him. At this time, Ji Yangxia still dared to take the initiative to find trouble with him. He was simply courting death. Chapter 1185. Ji Yangxia's face instantly became ugly, as if he couldn't understand why Di Beichen was so arrogant today. Previously, even though Di Beichen had swiftly and decisively regained the position of the young lord, but due to the pressure of the two palace lords, he had never directly confronted him. What was going on today? For a moment, Ji Yangxia was a little embarrassed. Xiao Hongzhen and Jiang Yi's faces also changed a little. Di Beichen's performance today was indeed a little unusual. However, on second thought, the two felt that it was very likely that Di Beichen had to say this because of the failure of the Kanglin College's cultivators. Young sect master, aren't you going a little too far with your words? Xiao Hongzhen spoke slowly. His words were filled with the intention of awakening someone. Di Beichen glanced at Xiao Hongzhen indifferently. Does Temple Master Xiao have a problem with me? As soon as these words came out, Xiao Hongzhen was stunned again. Was Di Beichen going to take the initiative to provoke a conflict today? Not only Xiao Hongzhen, but even Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing also couldn't understand Di Beichen. They also understood that Di Beichen wanted to get rid of Xiao Hongzhen and Jiang Yi, but the two had been in Tiangang's sect for too long and their positions were too stable. It was obviously impossible to uproot them immediately. However, as long as they were given a certain amount of time, they would definitely be able to get rid of them completely. Young sect master, what you said is too serious. Jiang Yi immediately said. However, Di Beichen didn't give any face to these two people at all. I'm the young lord. You only need to listen to my orders. As for my decisions, it's not up to the two temple masters to question. As for Ji Yangxia, he's just an ordinary cultivator in my Tiangang sect. How dare he have a problem with me? In my opinion, you don't want to stay in Tiangang sect anymore, do you? The low and magnetic voice was full of domineering as usual. Di Beichen's expression was gentle and lazy. Even when he said such words, he still seemed to be talking about the good weather today. It wasn't that he couldn't uproot the two temple masters from Tiangang's sect before, but they were both promoted by his master. On the one hand, he had to worry about his master. Now, all these problems no longer existed, and he didn't need to be polite. As soon as these words came out, the cultivators present couldn't help but open their mouths and looked at Di Beichen in horror. Di Beichen was actually going to expel Ji Yangxia from Tiangang's sect directly. Ji Yangxia's face was as gloomy as water. He could no longer maintain his previous elegant smile. There was a trace of panic in his eyes. He did not understand why Di Beichen had become completely different after his return. Young sect master, I've always treated Ji Yangxia as my own son. What do you think of me by saying this? Chapter 1186. Xia Jiqing, Dongfang Yu, and the others all looked at Di Beichen in amazement. On ordinary days, Di Beichen was always very kind when he was with them. At this moment, seeing Di Beichen like this, they really understood the power of the sect's young sect master. His casual attitude and arrogant and unruly words were simply shocking. Di Beichen is really too handsome. Xia Jiqing's eyes were filled with worship. She had previously felt that Di Beichen was very domineering, but now it seemed that her previous thoughts were too simple. This is the power of Di Beichen. These annoying guys dare to question Di Beichen, they really deserve it. Zhang Yunfeng clapped her hands and cheered. Even if she didn't know the internal situation of Tiangang sect, she knew that these guys were definitely not good things. Bailey Hongzhuang still had a cloud-like appearance, her rose-colored lips evoked an enchanting arc. It seemed that Di Beichen had already begun to make his move. These old guys were no different from the cancer of Tiangang sect. If Di Beichen really wanted to sit in the position of Tiangang sect, he needed to remove these tumors one by one. The atmosphere became stiff for a while, and even the assessment of the last group was suspended. The disciples of Tiangang sect were all looking at each other. They had never seen the contradiction between the young sect master and the palace master. Today, they only felt that they worshipped Di Beichen even more. Han Shiling's eyes also showed a look of worship and admiration. This was the big brother Di she had always worshipped. No matter what the situation was, Big Brother Di always had a kind of domineering and arrogance that other men couldn't match, making people intoxicated. Taking advantage of his seniority. When Xiao Hongzhen was crowned with these words by Di Beichen, he could no longer keep calm. Di Beichen trampled on his dignity in front of everyone. If he was criticized by Di Beichen today, how could he maintain the majesty in front of the disciples in the future? Di Beichen. Xiao Hongzhen's face was full of anger, and he didn't even call him young sect master anymore. I watched you grow up from a child to the present. Since the sect master left, I have helped you take charge of Tiangang sect. No matter what, I am your elder. If the sect master knows that you have become like this after growing up, the sect master will be very disappointed. Yes, even if you grow up, you can't forget your roots. Jiang Yi followed up. Since Di was so, they would teach Di Beichen a lesson in public. Di Beichen's majesty would also be dealt a big blow to Di's majesty. Di's majesties. Di Beichen's would woots. Ji Ji's yang, Li He Yang's his was wondering how Di would S's response. Di's Beichen's was put. This was making Beichen was in his him. He's Beichen's this. No matter what, Di Beichen would end up with a reputation of not respecting his elders. However, in the face of Xiao Hongzhen's and Jiang Yi's accusations, Di Beichen's lips curled into a cold smile. Over the years, he had long been tired of these two fellows' actions of taking advantage of their seniority. When Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing saw that the situation was so rigid, they wanted to speak up to ease the tension. Just then, a vicissitude and majestic voice suddenly sounded from behind. I didn't know that I needed Palace Master Xiao to help Beichen manage Tiangang sect on my behalf. Chapter 1187. Sect Leader. Someone took the lead and shouted. Then, everyone bowed and saluted, "Greetings, Sect Leader." Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing looked at each other. They did not expect the sect leader to suddenly return. Before this, none of them knew about this news. Xiao Hongzhen and Jiang Yi's faces instantly turned ugly. They simply could not believe what they were seeing. The sect leader had really returned. In the past 4 years, there had been no news of the sect leader. They had also inquired for a long time, but it was as if the sect leader had disappeared from this world after leaving. Before the sect leader left, they had been very concerned about this matter. However, as time gradually passed, they had also forgotten about this matter. Now, they only hoped that the sect leader would never return. After all, there was a certain amount of risk when a cultivator was looking for an opportunity to break through. Some strong cultivators had fallen while looking for a breakthrough. This was also a common occurrence. They didn't expect the sect master to suddenly return. Moreover, he appeared after they said such words. Almost in a short moment, Xiao Hongjin and Jiang Yi understood that this was a trap set by Di Beichen. The reason why Di Beichen had acted like this before was to provoke them and make them say such outrageous things. Now that the sect leader had appeared and heard what they had said, he would undoubtedly be very angry. Xiao Hongjin and Jiang Yi both stared coldly at Di Beichen. They did not expect that Di Beichen had become so calculative after not seeing him for a while. The complacency in Ji Yangxia's eyes dissipated in an instant and was replaced by a thick fear. He was about the same age as Di Beichen. He knew how much the sect leader doted on Di Beichen. When the sect leader was not around, his master and the others did not push him to the position of young sect leader. After the sect leader returned, he was completely out of luck with the position of young sect leader. Originally, he did not take Di Beichen's word seriously because there were 2 temple masters here. Di Beichen could not expel him from Tiangang sect. However, now that the sect leader had returned, he might even have seen his previous performance clearly. Under such circumstances, even his master could not protect himself, let alone him. Situ Yen slowly walked over. Even though he did not say anything, the aura of a superior lingered in the air. It was the first time for many Tiangang sect disciples to see the sect master in person. They all looked at Situ Yen curiously. After Situ Yen walked to the side of Di Beichen and the others, the 4 palace masters bowed together. "Greetings, sect master." "Master." Di Beichen called out. Situ Yen waved his hand slightly. His gaze then fell on Xiao Hongjin and Jiang Yi. His weathered and dignified face revealed a faint smile. "I didn't know that the 2 hall masters would spend so much effort while I was away from Tiangang sect." Even though Situ Yen said it casually, Xiao Hongjin and Jiang Yi could hear the anger in his words. They quickly knelt down and said, "Sect master, we just spoke carelessly before. We didn't mean it. I hope sect master can forgive us." Xiao Hongjin and Jiang Yi were both sweating profusely. They dared to treat Di Beichen like that, but they absolutely did not dare to face Situ Yen. Situ Yen glanced at the 2 of them indifferently. "Spoke carelessly." Chapter 1188. Although many cultivators didn't know the attitude of the 2 temple masters towards Di Beichen, they could tell that the 2 temple masters didn't treat Di Beichen well based on their previous performance. What's more, as the young sect master of Tiangang sect, Di Beichen was forced to leave Tiangang sect for 2 years. This was something everyone knew. Previously, everyone thought that if the sect master hadn't left, Di Beichen wouldn't have been forced to leave. Now that Di Beichen had returned, and the sovereign had also returned, she was afraid that the days of the 2 palace masters would not be easy. Di Beichen is the young sect master of Tiangang sect. No matter what you say, you can't disobey the young sect master. Situ Yen spoke bluntly. He also knew the situation Di Beichen was facing. Now, it seemed that the situation was much more serious than he thought. Hearing the reproach in Situ Yen's words, Xiao Hongjin and Jiang Yi's hearts sank. Situ Yen's sudden appearance today was tantamount to giving them a head-on blow. All their previous plans turned into bubbles with Situ Yen's appearance. When they thought of everything they had done before, they only felt that a great disaster was imminent. Situ Yen was never a simple person to be able to become the sect master. Di Beichen's swift and decisive means were largely influenced by Situ Yen. Don't look at Situ Yen's kind appearance. When he was ruthless, he was cruel. I don't know. During the time I was away, Tiangang sect didn't value status but seniority. Situ Yen looked at Xiao Hongjin and Jiang Yi meaningfully. Before he left, he never thought that Xiao Hongjin and Jiang Yi would be so bold to do such a thing. Just looking at the situation in front of him, he could imagine the suffering Di Beichen had suffered over the years. Speaking of which, he also felt that he owed Di Beichen a lot. "Sect master, we didn't mean that." Xiao Hongzhen braced himself to explain. If this was confirmed, then their following days would be really difficult. What does that mean? Situ Yen had no intention of giving Xiao Hongzhen a way out. At this point, the selfishness of Xiao Hongzhen and Situ Yen could not be more obvious. All the explanations were just lame cover-ups. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Situ Yen, who was so resolute. Her eyes lit up with joy. She was wondering why Situ Yen hadn't shown himself even though he was messing around. It turned out that he was waiting for an opportunity to make things difficult for Xiao Hongzhen. If Xiao Hongzhen and the other two had known about the sect master's return, they would have done everything they could to cover up what they had done. As a result, they were able to find fault with the two of them, making it much easier to deal with them. Sect master, Jiang Yi wanted to explain, but he couldn't say anything for a long time. This was because he simply could not find a reason to cover up all of this. Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing also looked at Xiao Hongzhen and Gu Jingqing indifferently. Speaking of which, the two of them had brought this upon themselves. Ji Yangxia lowered his head. Once the two temple masters were punished, he wouldn't have a good ending either. Si Tuyen raised his right hand and stopped Jiang Yi. The two of you go back and think about it. Prepare for the punishment. Chapter 1189. Even though Xiao Hongzhen and Jiang Yi were very unwilling, they did not dare to disobey Situ Yen. They could only leave the assessment array under everyone's strange gazes. After Xiao Hongzhen and Jiang Yi left, Di Beichen's gaze quietly fell on Ji Yangxia. Over the years, although Ji Yangxia did not go as far as Xiao Hongzhen and Jiang Yi, he still had a lot of sarcastic remarks. Now, it was time to pay them back double. Feeling Di Beichen's gaze, Ji Yangxia could not help but feel a chill from the bottom of his feet, making him feel as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. In the next moment, Ji Yangxia no longer hesitated and hurriedly left behind Xiao Hongzhen and Jiang Yi. With the departure of Xiao Hongzhen and Jiang Yi, the atmosphere also eased a little. Dongfang Yu's handsome face showed a look of amazement. I didn't expect that I would have the opportunity to see the sect master of Tiangang sect. This time, it was really worth it. The sect master, how many people did not have the opportunity to see him? Even the cultivators of the sect may not have the opportunity to see the sect master. Dongfang Yu did not expect that he would have the opportunity to see him today, and to see such a wonderful scene. Han Shiling's eyes also lit up after seeing Situ Yen return, and his heart was filled with indescribable joy. She was also very dissatisfied with Ji Yangxia. No matter what, Ji Yangxia could not be compared to Di Beichen. There was only one successor of Tiangang sect, and that was Di Beichen. Since Di Beichen did not listen to everyone's words, then he would definitely listen to the sect master's words. In this way, as long as the sect master was dissatisfied with Bailey Hongzhuang, then all the problems would be solved. Thinking of this, Han Shiling only felt that the clouds had finally parted and the moon had seen the light. This time, Bailey Hongzhuang could really give up. Han Hongyi and Han Shiling walked in front of Situ Yen together and bowed to him, sect master. Situ Yen nodded slightly, put away his original seriousness, and his expression returned to indifference. Since it's over, let's continue with the test, Situ Yen said with a smile. Hearing that, everyone's gaze finally landed on Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. All the cultivators before them had already completed their assessment. Only Bailey Hongzhuang and the other four had yet to undergo their assessment. Bailey Hongzhuang, Xia Jiqing and the others looked at each other. In this round of assessment, they must do their best to pass. Han Shiling's gaze also landed on Bailey Hongzhuang. She could only blame Bailey Hongzhuang's bad luck. Sect master had just returned and she had to make a fool of herself in front of him. She would like to see how Bailey Hongzhuang would be able to make the sect leader fall in love with her after failing this test. The test begins. The elder's voice rang out, and he immediately put a spirit stone into the array. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Di Beichen, and Di Beichen also looked at her. His eyes, as deep as the sea, rippled with trust and affection. He had never doubted Bailey Hongzhuang's strength. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. She would definitely pass this test. Han Xiling looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen affectionately looking at each other, and her heart was filled with jealousy. She kept thinking about how she would ridicule Bailey Hongzhuang when Bailey Hongzhuang failed so that the sect leader would not like her. However, just as Bailey Hongzhuang was about to enter the assessment array, the sect leader's voice suddenly sounded. Chapter 1190. As Si Tuyen's voice fell, everyone looked at Si Tuyen in astonishment, their faces full of disbelief. What was this situation? Could it be that the sovereign had already seen Bailey Hongzhuang? Looking at Si Tuyen's loving smile, it seemed that he was very satisfied with Bailey Hongzhuang. Han Xiling's face turned green after Si Tuyen said this sentence, and his whole person stood in place in a daze. This was simply an impossible thing. Could it be that the sovereign felt that Bailey Hongzhuang and Big Brother Di were a good match? Han Hongyi was also a little surprised, but his face did not show the slightest clue. Just from Si Tuyen's attitude, he could judge a lot of things. It seemed that Di Beichen and the others had already known the news of the sovereign's return, but the sovereign had never appeared in front of others. Xia Jiqing and the others looked at each other, and there was a happy and excited effect on their faces. From the day Han Xiling clamored in front of Bailey Hongzhuang because of her identity, they were a little worried that Bailey Hongzhuang would not be liked by the sovereign. The relationship between Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen was so good. If the sovereign looked down on Bailey Hongzhuang's background and forcibly separated them, it was something that none of them wanted to see. Now it seemed that the sovereign not only did not look down on Bailey Hongzhuang, but on the contrary, he liked Bailey Hongzhuang very much. How can the sovereign be like this? Tao Tsongrong's eyes were full of puzzlement. How can you do this to Miss? Han Xiling glared fiercely at Tao Tsongrong. From the moment the sovereign said this sentence, she had become a joke in the eyes of everyone. Tao Tsongrong was now really touching the pot that did not boil. So, wouldn't it be a joke? In fact, as Han Xiling expected, the eyes of a group of cultivators fell on Han Xiling, revealing a little pity, a little sympathy, and a little irony. It turns out that the sovereign is also very satisfied with Bailey Hongzhuang. No wonder the young sovereign would bring Bailey Hongzhuang back. So, Bailey Hongzhuang is the young sovereign's wife of our Tiangang sect. Isn't this nonsense? It's already a done deal. Everyone's heart sighed. Bailey Hongzhuang was really a strong presence in Tiangang sect, completely squeezing Han Xiling out of place. For an ordinary cultivator to do this, it was simply impossible according to common sense. Now it seemed that this Bailey Hongzhuang had also established a legend. A warm and sweet smile appeared on the beautiful face. Bailey Hongzhuang bowed to Si Tuyen, and then walked into the assessment array with Xia Jiqing and the others. As soon as the array started, Bailey Hongzhuang felt an energy surround her, and then the scene in front of her had become completely different. She had appeared in the mountains, and in front of her, a group of wind wolves were flashing with hungry blue light, apparently treating her as a meal on a plate. Faced with such a situation, Bailey Hongzhuang quickly calmed down. It seemed that the situation was the same as what Di Beichen said. The lapis lazuli sword appeared in her hand. It was exactly the same as the one in the real world. In this illusion, everyone would have their own weapon that they were most comfortable with. Almost in a short moment, those wind wolves rushed toward Bailey Hongzhuang, wanting to swallow Bailey Hongzhuang into their belly. This feeling was more intense than any of her previous examinations. Cui Haoyan nodded slightly, his expression firm. I believe that they will be able to hold on until the end. Gong Xiaoqing and Dong Fangyu were stronger than them, especially Gong Xiaoqing. As the #1 student of the Azure Water School, there was absolutely no problem. Xia Jiqing's progress in this period of time was also very great. Not only that, her determination to participate in the assessment with Bailey Hongzhuang was unparalleled. With this determination, Xia Jiqing might be able to hold on. As for Bai Junyu, he relied on the power of love. Chapter 1192. When the second incense stick burned out and the third incense stick was lit, the faces of the onlookers could not help but change a little. It must be known that many cultivators who participated in the assessment before did not persist for such a long time. However, until now, none of the 5 people in Bailey Hongzhuang's group had been unable to hold on, which was somewhat unexpected. Cui Haoyan and Zhang Yunfeng's faces showed a few traces of excitement. They only hoped that Bailey Hongzhuang's group of 5 could persist until the end. Han Xiling saw that Bailey Hongzhuang's group of 5 had persisted until now without any signs of defeat. Her face also changed a little. It was reasonable to say that with the strength of Bailey Hongzhuang's Orange Realm's second stage, she could persist for 3 incense sticks, but the cultivation of Xia Jiqing and the others were all in the Red Realm. It was absolutely difficult to persist for 3 incense sticks. In any case, some of the 5 should have withdrawn by now. Why did no one appear until now? After Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing saw this scene, there was a faint smile in their eyes. It seemed that the strength of the cultivators of the Kanglan College was not weak. I didn't expect that these cultivators of the Kanglan College could persist for such a long time. It's really unexpected. Do you think they will persist until the end? This is definitely impossible. The time of 3 incense sticks is not so easy to persist. It's not like you haven't tried this assessment array before. Everyone was talking about it, waiting for Bailey Hongzhuang and the others to withdraw from the assessment array. You know, the closer it was to the time of 3 incense sticks, the more difficult it was to continue. The time of 3 incense sticks was a hurdle. It was extremely difficult to persist until then. Bailey Hongzhuang's group of 5 were immersed in the illusion and did not know the situation outside. The various monsters that appeared inside were overwhelming. Bailey Hongzhuang held the glass sword like a goddess of death. Whenever a monster appeared, she would take the lead and rush up before the monster attacked. After the trial of the Blood Tower, her combat effectiveness had improved a lot, but her endurance had improved even more. Every bronze man did not know fatigue, and Bailey Hongzhuang naturally needed extraordinary endurance to fight with them. Under such an abnormal cultivation, Bailey Hongzhuang's endurance continued to improve, and the time she fought was also longer. If it was a cultivator of the same strength, they would not be able to stand it after such a long time, but Bailey Hongzhuang did not seem to be tired. Her essence, qi, and spirit were still at their peak. This was the magical part of human cultivators. As long as they worked hard, nothing was impossible. Gradually, everyone noticed that the faces of Xia Jiqing and the others showed a nervous look. Large beads of sweat had covered their foreheads, but their tenacious expressions showed that they were still clenching their teeth and persevering. Gong Xiaoqing's face was as cold as ever. His unchanging iceberg face did not change at all. Obviously, he was still at ease. Dong Fangyu's brows were tightly knitted. Although beads of sweat had seeped out of his forehead, he still didn't show any signs of defeat. Bai Junyu and Xia Jiqing's demeanor was quite similar. Both of their faces were pale, and the way they clenched their teeth clearly showed that they were desperately holding on. Chapter 1193. That Xia Jiqing can't hold on any longer. Everyone's eyes fell on Xia Jiqing. Now there was only a third of the third incense stick left. It was obviously impossible for Xia Jiqing to hold on until the third incense stick burned out. Seeing this, Han Shiling's ugly face eased a little. If Bailey Hongzhuang and the other four succeeded in holding on for 3 incense sticks, then Bailey Hongzhuang would not only not lose face, but also gain face. This was not something she wanted to see. As long as one cultivator failed, the other cultivators were likely to be unable to hold on one after another. Oh no, Jiqing can't hold on anymore. What should we do? Zhang Yinfeng's eyes were full of worry. She knew how much Jiqing wanted to participate in the assessment with Hongzhuang. If Jiqing did not hold on, she could almost imagine Jiqing's state. For the sake of your obsession, you must persevere. Zhang Yinfeng put her hands together and kept saying in her heart, only hoping that Xia Jiqing could hold on. Xia Jiqing's hands trembled more and more. Just when everyone thought that Xia Jiqing could not hold on, Xia Jiqing's face suddenly changed. It was as if there was an inexplicable force encouraging her. Her expression became firm, and even her trembling hands stabilized a little. I can't fail. Xia Jiqing's heart kept shouting. She had been injured in the battle with the monsters, and there was an unspeakable pain in her body. However, she could not fail like this. If she could not hold on for a while in this illusion array, how could she enter the small world and fight side by side with Hongzhuang? Under this huge obsession, Xia Jiqing once again stabilized. Looking at the sudden change in Xia Jiqing, all the cultivators present were stunned for a moment, and a strange color appeared on their faces. What is this situation? Xia Jiqing suddenly broke out. The 3rd incense stick is almost burned out. These 5 people won't all pass, right? As the 3rd incense stick gradually burned out, everyone only felt that it was incredible. This was too heaven-defying. There were 7 cultivators from Kanglan College. Before 2 people were eliminated, this round of 5 people all passed. The gap was too big, right? However, as everyone guessed, when the 3rd incense stick burned out and the 4th incense stick was lit, it told everyone the result was that all 5 people passed. Just as the 4th incense stick was lit, Xia Jiqing finally could not hold on and withdrew from the assessment array. Zhang Yinfeng immediately greeted her. Xia Jiqing's eyes were closed, her face was pale, and the sweat on her forehead was particularly distressing. Jiqing, are you okay? Zhang Yinfeng quickly asked. Xia Jiqing was concerned about another problem. How long did I hold on? She closed eyes. She did not dare to look at her results. She really did not want to fail. However, she had already done her best to persevere until the very last moment. Looking at Xia Jiqing's worried and nervous appearance, Zhang Yinfeng's face showed a smile and said, 3 incense sticks. You have passed. As Zhang Yinfeng's voice fell, Xia Jiqing couldn't help but be startled. What did you say? I passed. Zhang Yinfeng nodded again and again. Yes, if you don't believe me, you can see for yourself. Xia Jiqing opened her eyes. After seeing the 3 incense sticks that had burned out, her face could not help but show a strong joy. No matter what, Bailey Hongzhuang's results were already very good. As long as Bailey Hongzhuang could survive the examination, her strength would increase by another level. At this moment, many cultivators believed in Di Beichen's choice. With Di Beichen's taste, the woman he liked would definitely not be bad. Si Tuyen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, who was standing in the middle of the examination array, with a trace of satisfaction in his eyes. It seemed that this Bailey Hongzhuang was also a very hard-working girl. While everyone was sighing at Bailey Hongzhuang's performance, Bailey Hongzhuang was in the middle of a killing spree in the illusion array. This situation was very similar to when she fought against the bronze men. On the contrary, it might be easier to deal with these monsters. Yes. Chapter 1195. Even though the number of demonic beasts in front of her was shocking, Bailey Hongzhuang remained calm and did not feel any fear in her heart. In her previous life, the old man had told her not to worry about the number of opponents in front of her because the only ones who could exchange blows with her were the first wave. As for the rest, it was just a psychological effect. Therefore, Bailey Hongzhuang only focused on dealing with the demonic beasts in front of her. As for the demonic beasts behind her who were eyeing covetously, she did not care at all. She did not know when she would stop fighting. She only knew that she would not stop until the last moment. In a moment, Bailey Hongzhuang became the focus of everyone's attention. They only wanted to know how long Bailey Hongzhuang could hold on. "Young miss, I didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang to be able to hold on for so long." Tao Tsongrong's face was a little ugly. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang's performance was outstanding, it would be harder for her young miss to deal with Bailey Hongzhuang. One must know that back then, she was the one who went around telling the cultivators of Tiangang's sect that Bailey Hongzhuang did not have any ability and only had the ability to seduce others. Now, Bailey Hongzhuang had used her own strength to wash away all of this. In comparison, the one who found it hard to step down was her. Hearing Tao Tsongrong's words, Han Shiling's face turned ugly. At this moment, she could not say anything other than staying silent. She only felt that this time, it would be really difficult for her to take down Bailey Hongzhuang. As the fifth incense stick was about to burn out, Bailey Hongzhuang was about to break the best record among the cultivators so far. Bailey Hongzhuang opened her eyes. The assessment of the assessment array had ended. However, on the other side, the fifth incense stick had not completely burned out. Seeing this scene, Han Shiling could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. The longer Bailey Hongzhuang held on, the harder it would be for her to step down. Fortunately, Bailey Hongzhuang did not become the best performer. However, soon the surrounding cultivators noticed that the situation was not right. Because Bailey Hongzhuang did not directly withdraw from the assessment array, but the assessment array ended automatically. This was very strange. Is there a problem with the assessment array? Why was Bailey Hongzhuang not ejected from the assessment array, but the assessment array closed automatically? I don't know, I have never seen such a situation, it is really strange. That's really a pity. Maybe Bailey Hongzhuang had a chance to surpass the best cultivator, but now that idea has been shattered. Everyone shook their heads and sighed. Of course, the feeling of the first place and of the second place. In their eyes, Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang, Bailey Hongzhuang. Of Bailey Hongzhuang. Now that Hongzhuang had missed out on the first place because of a problem with the assessment formation, it was depressing. Houses. Isn't it too depressing? Xia Jiqing's eyes were full of displeasure. She subconsciously looked at Han Shiling. Could it be that someone did not like Hongzhuang, so they did something to the assessment array? Noticing Xia Jiqing's unkind eyes, Han Shiling also looked at Xia Jiqing coldly. Bailey Hongzhuang did not persist to the end, could it be that she was to blame? Chapter 1196. Qin Ai could not help but frown when she saw the situation in the assessment array. The assessment array ended on its own. Don't tell me that Miss Bailey passed all the assessments. As Qin Ai's voice fell, Gu Jingqing could not help but glance at Qin Ai. His eyes were filled with a trace of surprise. You're right. That's possible. There were many different assessments in the assessment array. When it was used to obtain a spot in the assessment competition, there were only a certain number of checkpoints in the assessment array as the cultivator's abilities were generally not very strong. Normally, if one persisted for 6 incense sticks worth of time, one would be able to pass all the checkpoints. Once all the checkpoints were passed, the assessment array's assessment would naturally end. However, until now, there had never been a cultivator who could pass all the checkpoints on their first attempt at the assessment array. If Bailey Hongzhuang only used 5 incense sticks worth of time to pass all the checkpoints, how intense was her battle strength during this period of time? This meant that Bailey Hongzhuang only used 5 incense sticks worth of time to kill the beasts that would normally take 6 incense sticks worth of time to kill. If that was the case, it would be too insane. Sect leader, young sect leader, the assessment has ended. The elder reported to Si Tuyen and Di Beichen slowly. Si Tuyen nodded slightly and looked at the cultivators who passed the assessment. Congratulations on passing the assessment and representing Tiangang's sect to participate in the assessment competition. Hearing Si Tuyen's words, all the cultivators who were qualified to participate in the assessment smiled brightly. It was their honor to be able to hear the sect leader's congratulations. As usual, the cultivator who came in first in this assessment will receive a reward. As soon as he said that, all the cultivators present looked at the cultivator who persisted for 5 incense sticks worth of time. Wu Yuexin, Orange Realm rank 4, was expected to win. Wu Yuexin smiled. Fortunately, she won first place in the end. Just as Wu Yuexin was ready to accept everyone's envying congratulations, Si Tuyen's words made her smile freeze. Congratulations, Bailey Hongzhuang. Di Beichen's lips curled into a dazzling smile. His wife had always been outstanding, but her performance still surprised him. Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing looked at each other. It seemed that their previous guess was not wrong. Bailey Hongzhuang had really completed all the trials at an extremely fast speed. As soon as Si Tuyen finished speaking, the expressions of all the cultivators present turned grim. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. How could it be Bailey Hongzhuang? Wasn't it Wu Yuexin? I don't know. I don't know what's going on either. Could the sect master have made a mistake? Xia Jiqing, Gong Shaoqing and the others looked at each other. Although there was an unspeakable joy in their hearts, they were also worried that they would be happy for nothing. If he really made a mistake, Hongzhuang would be even more embarrassed. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a faint smile. She was still as indifferent as before. Sect master, isn't Wu Yuexin in first place? Han Xiling couldn't help but ask. Would the sect master be biased towards Bailey Hongzhuang? Chapter 1197. Han Xiling rarely came to the assessment array, so she didn't know much about the situation of the assessment array. However, as the great elder, Han Hongyi knew the reason very well. Bailey Hongzhuang's current situation was that she had completely passed the assessment array. Naturally, she deserved to be first place. Following Han Xiling's voice, everyone's gaze fell on Han Xiling and Si Tuyen. In fact, many of them didn't know the answer to this question. Facing Han Xiling's question, Si Tuyen smiled faintly. Bailey Hongzhuang has already passed the assessment array. Who else could it be but her? As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was stunned. Bailey Hongzhuang has already passed the assessment array. Does this mean that Bailey Hongzhuang has already killed all the demonic beasts that appeared in the assessment array? That's why Bailey Hongzhuang hasn't been ejected from the assessment array. Oh my god, is this really Bailey Hongzhuang's first time taking part in the assessment array? Isn't this a little too abnormal? Until now, I have never seen a cultivator who could achieve such a result on their first use of the assessment array. The cultivators who didn't know what was going on all came to a sudden realization. After a short moment of disbelief, they were even more impressed. Even though Bailey Hongzhuang's current strength was still far from the young sect master's wife in their hearts, the potential that Bailey Hongzhuang had shown was already very outstanding. As long as Bailey Hongzhuang was given a certain amount of time, Bailey Hongzhuang would also become a powerhouse. Han Xiling's face turned ugly. She began to regret asking this question. With the sect master's explanation, Bailey Hongzhuang seemed even more impressive. As for her, she grew up in Tiangang's sect since she was young, but she didn't even understand these questions. It was really embarrassing. There are still 7 days before the assessment competition begins. Everyone should prepare well. After 7 days, we will be taking part in the assessment competition. C2 Yen slowly said before he turned around and left. The 2 hall masters followed closely behind C2 Yen. They still needed some time to deal with Xiao Hongzhen and Jiang Yi. Di Beichen slowly walked to Bailey Hongzhuang's side, a charming smile on his handsome face. You did well. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her chin slightly, her bright and beautiful face rippling with an enchanting smile. Of course. Then, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others slowly walked towards the bedroom. Although Zhang Yunfeng and Cui Haoyan did not pass the test, today's result was already very good for them. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others returned to Di Beichen's quarters, but Di Beichen had something to do, so he did not return with them. Come to think of it, the way the 2 temple masters treated Di Beichen previously, it was time for Di Beichen to repay them. This time, Xiao Hongzhen and Jiang Yi, those 2 annoying fellows, are going to be unlucky. Baisher's eyes sparkled with excitement. Those 2 fellows had dared to make things difficult for its master. They were simply digging their own graves. Serves them right. Those 2 fellows were really arrogant. And that Ji Yangxia, I'm afraid that their intestines are green with regret now. Xiao He laughed. It's best to make these fellows disappear from Tiangang sect. If they continue to stay in Tiangang sect, they will only be black sheep. Hearing the 3 beasties' words, Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. Since Di Beichen has taken action, their punishment will not be light. Don't worry. Chapter 1198. Xia Jiqing was in a very good mood. She had been nervous all night yesterday. Today, she finally succeeded in qualifying for the competition. She only felt relaxed and no longer had to be so nervous. Gong Xiaoqing, Dong Fangyu, and Bai Junyu all had a faint smile on their faces. One must know that in the entire Xingxian continent, there were very few cultivators who could get a place. Their ability to get such a place had already proved their strength. However, after seeing Zhang Yunfeng and Cui Haoyan, who were in a very low mood, everyone could not help but feel sorry for them. If Zhang Yunfeng and Cui Haoyan could also participate in the assessment competition, that would be the best result. Yunfeng, don't be sad, it is also very good to cultivate outside. Xia Jiqing could not help but comfort her. Listening to Xia Jiqing's words, Zhang Yunfeng's mouth pulled out a smile and said, I'm fine, don't worry. Cui Haoyan glanced at the crowd and said, I'll go back to my room first. Everyone nodded. In such a situation, Cui Haoyan just wanted to be alone. Seeing Cui Haoyan leave, Zhang Yunfeng also said, I'll also go back to my room to rest. Yunfeng, looking at Zhang Yunfeng's situation, Xia Jiqing was about to say something, but Bailey Hongzhuang had already stopped her. Let them be alone. Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. Their friends had all been qualified to participate, but they had not. It was difficult for Zhang Yunfeng and Cui Haoyan to accept this matter. However, she believed that Cui Haoyan and Zhang Yunfeng were not discouraged people. Even if they lost this opportunity, as long as they continued to work hard, they would also achieve something in the future. Xia Jiqing nodded slightly. She also knew that her persuasion had no effect at this time. There are still 7 days before we go to the small world. We have to start preparing the things we need to prepare quickly. After Di Beichen comes back, we will go to the trading market of Tiangang sect. The trading market would exist anywhere, and the cultivators of Tiangang sect often needed to purchase some other things. It was just that so far, she did not know where the trading market was, so she could only wait for Di Beichen to come back. Okay. Gong Xiaoqing nodded. They had to live in the small world for 2 years, so there were definitely a lot of things to prepare. When Di Beichen returned to his bedroom, he saw Bailey Hongzhuang refining pills. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's concentration and meticulous appearance, Di Beichen's heart trembled. Bailey Hongzhuang had an indescribable charm when she was serious. She was good at many things. Once she said what she was good at, many people would be surprised. His wife was destined to be the center of attention. Even if the unfair treatment at the beginning made Bailey Hongzhuang covered in dust, now Bailey Hongzhuang had begun to bloom with her own light. He believed that it wouldn't be long before Bailey Hongzhuang would become something that would amaze everyone. Seeing Di Beichen appear, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Her attention was still focused on the pills in the furnace. As a cultivator, it was possible for him to use pills at any time and place. She was about to go to the small world. If she did not prepare more, she would not have such good conditions. Chapter 1199. Not long after, Bailey Hongzhuang finished refining the elixir and sat down beside Di Beichen. Is the matter settled? A faint smile appeared on her delicate and beautiful face. She could feel that Di Beichen was in a good mood. Di Beichen's lips curled into a devilish smile as he nodded slightly. It's settled. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't ask any more questions. From the moment Di Beichen said that it was settled, it meant that the two temple masters and Ji Yangxia were no longer a threat to him. That's good. Bailey Hongzhuang was still smiling. She thought that Di Beichen would need some time to solve these problems. She didn't expect that he would be able to get rid of these threats in such a short time. My wife, the disciples of the Tiangang sect are all saying that I have good taste. Di Beichen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a faint smile and a proud expression. Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly taken aback. Her clear and bright eyes were filled with a bright smile. How did you know? With Di Beichen's status, even if the disciples were to talk about it, they wouldn't talk about it in front of Di Beichen. He Mu told me. Di Beichen shrugged and was very calm. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but laugh. He Mu had always been very concerned about her relationship with Di Beichen. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang, who was beautiful with every frown and smile, Di Beichen slowly held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand. His black eyes were filled with deep affection. My wife, I can't accompany you to participate in the assessment. You have to be careful in these 2 years. Di Beichen's voice was low and depressed. He didn't want Bailey Hongzhuang to be separated from him. Whenever he thought of Bailey Hongzhuang going through unknown dangers in a place where he couldn't see, he felt a pang of heartache. However, he understood that Bailey Hongzhuang wanted to become stronger. She still had too many things to do. As a man who loved her, he couldn't confine her under his wings. His wife should always be the center of attention. Her dusty life didn't belong to him. He was willing to wait for her. Bailey Hongzhuang looked up and saw Di Beichen's eyes. Her heart trembled. She couldn't bear to part with him. I will. There are all kinds of dangers in the examination. I'm always worried if I'm not by your side. Di Beichen's handsome brows furrowed. If it was possible, he really wanted to go in with Bailey Hongzhuang. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. I will take good care of myself. 2 years later, you will see a stronger me. Her deep eyes flashed with determination. She would grow up as soon as possible and defeat Han Xiling in front of everyone. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's confident look, Di Beichen reached out and stroked her silky black hair. This woman whom he wanted to protect with all his life had to become stronger. As long as Hongzhuang wanted to do something, he would support her. I will wait for your return. Di Beichen's smile was elegant and warm. His eyes flashed with a deep affection that could make any woman drown. Bailey Hongzhuang's heart trembled when he said that he would wait for her return. From the time they met until now, Di Beichen had always protected her and accompanied her to do everything she wanted to do. If it wasn't for accompanying her, Xiao Hongjin and the others wouldn't have been able to do whatever they wanted in Tiangang's sect for so long. And she had always been doing what she wanted to do. Now that she thought about it, she only felt guilty. Beichen, I. Chapter 1200. Needless to say, I understand. Di Beichen's eyes were filled with understanding. He felt sorry for Bailey Hongzhuang. Because she had no choice but to become stronger. If he knew that his biological parents were in such a situation, he would also try his best to become stronger. Because it was a blood feud. He understood Bailey Hongzhuang's persistence, and he would help Bailey Hongzhuang to complete all of this. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang only felt a warm feeling in her heart. How lucky she was to meet Di Beichen in the vast sea of people. I love you. 1,000 words could not compare to a single I love you. Bailey Hongzhuang stared at Di Beichen, her clear eyes filled with emotion and affection. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Di Beichen could not help but be stunned for a moment. Then, his starry eyes were filled with deep surprise, joy, and even ecstasy. That pair of deep and enchanting eyes instantly blossomed with boundless light. It was like a resplendent river of stars, gorgeous and magnificent. Di Beichen held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand tightly. He had never heard Bailey Hongzhuang confess so affectionately. He only felt the blood in his body surging, and his whole body became light. Wife, I love you even more. Bailey Hongzhuang looked up, and the two smiled at each other. Their eyes were filled with love that only the other party could understand. Compared to Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's love and affection, Han Shiling's mood was extremely bad. Whoosh! Bang! Han Shiling smashed all the tea sets on the table to the ground, and her cold and delicate face could not hide the sullen expression. Damn it! Tiangang's sect was obviously her home ground, but now Bailey Hongzhuang had stolen all the limelight. This was simply intolerable. She originally thought that all the cultivators in Tiangang's sect should support her, but they were simply a bunch of guys who changed their sails according to the wind. Today, Bailey Hongzhuang had only achieved good results in the assessment array. Everyone began to praise Bailey Hongzhuang for being outstanding. Brother Di had good taste. What are these things? Han Shiling only felt that the anger of jealousy was about to burn her to ashes. She just wanted to destroy everything. Looking at Han Shiling's appearance, Tao Tsongrong's face also showed a worried expression. Miss, don't get angry and harm your health. Han Shiling glared at Tao Tsongrong. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang is going to ride on my head, how can I not be angry? But young miss, it's not worth it if you hurt your health because of this. However, Han Shiling simply did not care about what Tao Tsongrong said. She continued to smash things. Only in this way could she vent the anger in her heart. She thought that she was the proud daughter of Tiangang's sect, but now she was suppressed by an unknown girl like Bailey Hongzhuang. If this spread out, it would simply be a joke. When did Han Shiling become an effect? However, after the appearance of Bailey Hongzhuang, she was particularly embarrassed. When Han Hongyi came to Han Shiling's house, he saw the messy scene and his face suddenly became gloomy. Shiling, what are you doing? There was a hint of reprimand in his low voice. Han Hongyi had already expected that after today's incident, Han Shiling's mood would definitely not be good. However, as a well-bred young lady, Han Shiling's current actions were really inappropriate. Chapter 1201. Han Hongyi glanced at Han Shiling. If I didn't come, would this house be torn down by you? Hearing the dissatisfaction and reprimand in Han Hongyi's words, Han Shiling muttered, Grandpa, you didn't help me at all today, you let Bailey Hongzhuang bully me. Today, the sovereign suddenly came back, and it seems that he has already seen Bailey Hongzhuang. Grandpa can't speak rashly. What's more, Bailey Hongzhuang's performance today was not bad. If you were magnanimous, it would be fine. But you had to ask, and you lost your face. Han Hongyi's weathered face showed a touch of helplessness. Shi Ling, you really lost your sense of propriety now. Over the years, Han Shiling had always been so cold. No matter what had happened, she had never been so flustered. However, where was Han Shiling's original arrogant appearance? She was like a resentful woman who was paranoid. Now, she had actually started to smash things. Grandpa, you know that I have always liked Big Brother D. Now Bailey Hongzhuang came later and took Big Brother D away. Now she can be said to be showing off in the territory of Tian Gang sect. What's more, now the sovereign likes her very much. If she really marries Big Brother D in the future, then how can I stay in Tian Gang sect? Han Shiling stared at Han Hongyi, and her pretty face was full of anxiety. She never thought that there would be such a day. Originally, as long as the sovereign did not come, Big Brother D could not marry Bailey Hongzhuang. However, who would have thought that the sovereign would suddenly come back? All this seemed to have been agreed. All the luck was on the side of Bailey Hongzhuang. How could she bear it? Han Hongyi sighed faintly. How could he not know Shi Ling's thoughts, but the relationship between men and women had never been decided by one person. Shi Ling, young sovereign's previous attitude has been very obvious. As long as Bailey Hongzhuang is here, you can't capture his heart. Han Hongyi said slowly as a cold light flashed in his eyes. As soon as Han Shiling heard Han Hongyi's words, he seemed to understand something. His eyes lit up. Grandpa, you mean, not waiting for Han Shiling's words to finish, Han Hongyi had already interrupted her. In my opinion, why don't you participate in the competition as well? Han Shiling was slightly startled, and a hint of surprise appeared on her pretty face. I'll participate as well. Han Hongyi nodded slightly. Since you have this opportunity, it's not bad for you to participate. When you come back, your reputation will be even more stable. However, Han Shiling was somewhat dissatisfied. Grandpa, it wasn't easy to separate Bailey Hongzhuang and Brother D. This is a good opportunity for me and Brother D to improve our relationship. If I also participate in the assessment competition, then wouldn't I also be unable to see Big Brother D? Han Shiling was puzzled. Why did she need to participate in the assessment competition for this kind of thing? What's more, the risk in the assessment competition was not a joke. If she was not careful, she might lose her life. She did not want to inexplicably bear those risks. Looking at Han Shiling's childish appearance, Han Hongyi was somewhat disappointed. Since you want to achieve great things, you need to look at the overall situation. When she thought about how Bailey Hongzhuang would disappear from her sight forever, she felt that the air was unprecedentedly fresh. Seeing Han Shiling's happy appearance, Han Hongyi's eyes also showed a smile. He would never let anyone take away what his granddaughter liked. Moreover, only his granddaughter had the qualifications to be this Tian Gang sect's young sect master's wife. However, Grandpa, I didn't take part in the assessment today. Can I still take part in the assessment now? A sense of worry appeared in Han Shiling's eyes. If she didn't have the opportunity to take part in the assessment, then everything would be ruined. Chapter 1203. After Han Hongyi left, Han Shiling sat on the chair in a good mood. Before, her grandfather had not expressed his opinion, so she thought that her grandfather did not support her. She did not expect that not only did her grandfather support her, but he had already started to act. Miss, you can rest assured now. Tao Tsongrong's face burst into an excited smile. Bailey Hongzhuang made her miss gnash her teeth and want to deal with her. Now there was finally an opportunity. Han Shiling's eyes revealed a sarcastic smile. Even if Bailey Hongzhuang is proud now, so what? It won't be long before she dies in my hands. When she thought of Bailey Hongzhuang's arrogant appearance in front of her these days, she hated that she could not immediately kill Bailey Hongzhuang in front of her. Tao Tsongrong nodded again, and then a touch of worry appeared on her face. Miss, this Bailey Hongzhuang is not participating in the exam alone. There are 4 other cultivators from the Azure Water School who are participating with her. I think their relationship is very good. If you want to make a move, won't these 4 people be a big obstacle? After all, 5 people were not a small target. Hearing this, Han Shiling sneered, they are just a group of mobs. If they want to help Bailey Hongzhuang, I will send them to hell together. In addition to Bailey Hongzhuang's group of 5, there were 7 other cultivators. Including her, there were 8 people. Even if it was a group fight, it would not be difficult for the 8 of them to kill Bailey Hongzhuang's group. What's more, although the 4 cultivators seemed to have a good relationship with Bailey Hongzhuang, they might have already abandoned Bailey Hongzhuang at a dangerous moment. The human nature of this world has always been so cold. Every man for himself, and the devil takes the hindmost. Looking at Han Shiling's confident appearance, Tao Tsongrong also smiled happily. Miss is right. With Miss's ability, it is absolutely easy to deal with Bailey Hongzhuang. After Tiangang's sex cultivators knew that Han Shiling was also participating in the exam, everyone was very surprised. As everyone knows, cultivators participate in the exam in order to have the opportunity to enter a sect. Han Shiling was already a cultivator of Tiangang's sect, so there was no need for her to participate in the exam. What's more, participating in the exam had a certain risk, so this was not a wise move. Even with Han Shiling's strength, there was a possibility of her falling in the exam. She already had the conditions that everyone envied, but now she wanted to take this narrow path. It's really strange. She wanted to take this narrow path. In my opinion, Han Shiling was stimulated by Bailey Hongzhuang, so she wants to participate in the assessment. That's true. Han Shiling has liked young sect leader for so long. Now that young sect leader suddenly brought Bailey Hongzhuang back, Han Shiling is not convinced at all. I wonder who will have better results between Han Shiling and Bailey Hongzhuang. Han Shiling wants to slap Bailey Hongzhuang's face. After a short moment of thinking, many cultivators already understood the reason why Han Shiling did this. Han Shiling's cultivation was originally stronger than Bailey Hongzhuang. Once the 2 of them participated in the exam, Han Shiling's results would most likely be better than Bailey Hongzhuang's. In this way, wouldn't it be a slap to Bailey Hongzhuang's face? After understanding this point, everyone couldn't help but sigh. The battle between the 2 women was also not simple. Chapter 1204. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others followed Di Beichen to purchase all the things they needed in the trading market, and then slowly walked towards the palace. Tiangang Zone was really worthy of being a big sect. This trading market could be said to have everything they needed. The things they needed could be bought here, which inevitably made them exclaim. Originally, they felt that there was a big gap between the sects and the secular world, and it would be inconvenient to buy some things. Now it seemed that all of this was not a problem at all. Cultivating in the sect was the best place for a cultivator to improve their cultivation. Xia Jiqing walked in Bailey Hongzhuang's expression, and her pretty face showed a bit of dissatisfaction. Hongzhuang, that Han Shiling suddenly wants to participate in the assessment competition. I think he definitely has no good intentions. Xia Jiqing did not restrain her voice. From the first time she met Han Shiling, she felt that Han Shiling was not a good person. When they were in the ruins, Han Xiling also squeezed Hong Zhuang everywhere. Now, after coming to Tiangang Zone, needless to say, it was even more so. Since he wants to go, then let him go. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was indifferent, but in the depths of her eyes, there was a cold light. She originally intended to let Han Xiling be free in Tiangang Zone for 2 more years. She did not expect Han Xiling to be so impatient and want to die early. Then she could only fulfill Han Xiling's wish. The grievances between them had to be solved sooner or later. Perhaps it would be more convenient to go to the small world to solve it. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's indifferent appearance, Xia Jiqing was a little worried. What if Han Xiling makes a move on you in the small world? Although she was very disdainful of Han Xiling grew up in Tiangang Zone since he was a child. His strength was much stronger than ordinary cultivators. Hongzhuang's cultivation talent was very strong, but now it was not comparable to Han Xiling. Once Han Xiling made a move, the situation would become very dangerous. When Gong Xiaoqing and the others heard this, they could not help but frown. In fact, they had also thought of this problem. They weren't familiar with Han Xiling, so they didn't know if Han Xiling was a cruel and merciless person. However, the possibility of that happening was very high. If she attacks, we will fight back. Different situations call for different measures. Compared with the nervousness of Xia Jiqing and the others, Bailey Hongzhuang seemed very indifferent. Han Xiling was indeed stronger than her, and she was also certain that the reason why Han Xiling suddenly proposed to participate in the assessment competition was to make a move on her during the assessment competition. As long as it was a cover-up, no one would know that she was the one who did it. Even if others guessed it, as long as there was no evidence, no one could do anything to her. However, this point was also applicable to her. She had also thought about making a move on Han Xiling. From the time Han Xiling found an assassin to deal with her, she had already wanted to take Han Xiling's life. It was just that Han Xiling was quite far away from her, so she had no chance to make a move at that time. Now that she was in Tiangang Zone, there were many people and it was also inconvenient for her to make a move. However, once he went to the small world, he would be able to fly freely in the vast sea. Seeing this, Xia Jiqing was also helpless. In such a situation, there was no one other than Hongzhuang who could be so calm. Thinking of this, Xia Jiqing couldn't help but look at Di Beichen. Di Beichen, what do you think of this matter? Of course it's true. Even if I don't think for myself, I will think for Jiqing and the others. Don't worry. Hearing this, Di Beichen was relieved. He understood that Hongzhuang had always cared about her sisterly relationship with Xia Jiqing. She would never let Xia Jiqing be in danger. As a result, this meant that Hongzhuang really had full confidence. Actually, I think it's good that Han Xiling and I participate in the assessment competition together. This way, she won't appear in front of you every day. Chapter 1206. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's playful teasing words, Di Beichen chuckled. My wife, are you jealous? Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged her shoulders and raised an eyebrow at Di Beichen. Han Xiling has no way of making me jealous. The smile on Di Beichen's lips widened, his dark eyes filled with tenderness. Of the many thousand weak waters, I'll only take one ladle. To him, having Hongzhuang in this life was enough. There were only 7 days left before the assessment competition. Everyone knew about the feelings between Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen, so in these few days, no one disturbed Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen, allowing the two to enjoy their time alone. Han Xiling no longer made a fuss after hearing Han Hongyi's words, and quietly cultivated in the room, causing some of the disciples to change their opinion of him. This kind of temperament was the Han Shiling they knew on ordinary days. The night before they left, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen stood in front of the window, the bright moonlight shining through the window sill into the room. The two of them were silent. Even though they already knew that they were going to separate, the feeling of reluctance was especially strong the night before. "My wife, you must be careful when you go to the pocket world. No matter what, you must come back safely." Di Beichen's deep and handsome eyes flickered with worry. When he thought of Bailey Hongzhuang leaving him for 2 years, he felt empty in his heart, as if he was missing the most important thing. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded lightly, her dark phoenix eyes filled with reluctance. "I will definitely come back safely." This was her promise. She would definitely come back safely. Seeing the seriousness and determination in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes, Di Beichen took a step forward and pulled Bailey Hongzhuang into his arms. Smelling the familiar and refreshing fragrance, the reluctance in his heart grew stronger. In the end, he couldn't bear for her to leave. However, this was a path that they had to take. As long as Hongzhuang returned safely, they wouldn't have to suffer the pain of separation in the future. "My wife, I won't be by your side for these 2 years. You can't be abducted by other men," Di Beichen said slowly. He was very familiar with Hongzhuang's charm. Even if Hongzhuang went to the pocket world, there were still many outstanding cultivators there. Without him as her protector, there would be many wild bees and butterflies. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled and pressed her face against Di Beichen's chest. "As the young master of Tiangang's sect, don't tell me you don't have confidence in your charm. That depends on my wife's thoughts." Di Beichen lowered his head and rested his chin on Bailey Hongzhuang's head. He had always been confident, but he cared too much about Hongzhuang. "I've already found the best man in the world." With just a simple sentence, Bailey Hongzhuang had already expressed her feelings. A pair for life. The two hugged each other quietly. At this time, all words seemed very pale. The other party already knew what they were thinking. The next day, when the first ray of light appeared on the horizon, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others got up and prepared to go to the pocket world. They were all very curious about the pocket world created by the strong. Di Beichen led everyone to the foot of Tiangang's Sect's mountain. The pocket world is a special sealed world. It will only open when the assessment competition starts and ends. Chapter 1207. The two palace masters and the great elder walked beside Di Beichen, and their hearts were filled with emotion. These cultivators were confident in participating in the assessment competition. Who knew how many of them would come back when the assessment competition was over 2 years later? Listening to Di Beichen's words, everyone's eyes were filled with amazement. They didn't expect this teleportation array to be so magical that it could directly send them to the small world. This process was much more convenient than they had imagined. "This is the first time I've heard of a teleportation array. It feels very powerful." Xia Jiqing's eyes flashed with excitement. Although she knew that there were endless risks in the small world, it was also a good experience to be able to see this teleportation array that ordinary people couldn't see at all. Although Dongfang Yu and the others didn't speak, their expressions were also filled with curiosity. The means of the big sects were really endless and dazzling. Now all of this strengthened their determination to participate in the assessment competition. Only in this way would they have the opportunity to become a member of the sect. "You haven't seen the world." Wu Yuexin glanced coldly at Xia Jiqing. With Xia Jiqing's identity, she was not qualified to represent Tiangang's sect to participate in the assessment competition. For this assessment competition, she had made sufficient preparations. She just wanted to get a good ranking in the assessment. If it weren't for the sudden appearance of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, the first place would definitely be hers. Now that she thought that such a group of bumpkins had stolen her limelight, she was dissatisfied. Listening to Wu Yuexin's words, Xia Jiqing glared at Wu Yuexin with dissatisfaction. You haven't seen the world, so what? She didn't know Wu Yuexin before, but now that she saw Wu Yuexin standing beside Han Xiling, she already knew that Wu Yuexin was their opponent. Naturally, she wouldn't be polite with her words. Wu Yuexin was stunned and looked at Xia Jiqing angrily. I'm still better than you. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned slightly. She didn't expect Han Xiling and Wu Yuexin to be together. The two were really like-minded, and their words were very disgusting. I don't think so. Xia Jiqing shrugged her shoulders indifferently. Her expression was indifferent and innocent, as if she didn't put Wu Yuexin in her eyes. Bailey Hongzhuang wanted to help, but seeing that Xia Jiqing's eloquence was getting better and better, she could solve it herself. Han Xiling patted Wu Yuexin's shoulder, indicating that Wu Yuexin should be patient for now. They were about to enter the small world. If they wanted to make a move, they would have to wait until they entered the small world. If the conflict was exposed in front of others now, when Bailey Hongzhuang and the others died, everyone would suspect that they had something to do with it. Noticing the vigilance in Han Xiling's eyes, Wu Yuexin took a deep breath and could only temporarily suppress this dissatisfaction. They were all excellent cultivators selected from the affiliated forces of Tiangang's sect and had always been very arrogant. She naturally felt inferior to Han Xiling. Whether it was identity, status, or strength, there was a huge gap between them. However, for people like Bailey Hongzhuang who came from the backwater, she looked down on her from the bottom of her heart. In her opinion, only Han Xiling's identity was worthy of the young sect master. Chapter 1208. Under the leadership of Di Beichen, everyone finally arrived at the location of the transmission array. In the center of the white jade platform, there was a huge circular totem. Just looking at the complex lines made one feel that it was mysterious and shocking, as if there was an incomprehensible mystery in it, attracting everyone's attention. This is the transmission array. Gong Shaoqing's cold and handsome face revealed a bit of emotion. Apart from powerful sects and powerful forces, he was afraid that no transmission array would exist. Not only Gong Shaoqing and the others, but the other cultivators also felt a burst of amazement when they saw the transmission array. Although they had heard of the transmission array, it was the first time they had seen it with their own eyes. Zhang Yunfeng and Cui Haoyan walked to the side of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, their eyes showing a bit of worry and reluctance. You are about to leave for the small world. This separation will be 2 years, you must come back safely. Zhang Yunfeng's eyes flashed with a bit of moisture, and her voice was a bit low. After this separation, she didn't know when they would meet again. What's more, the small world was full of risks. If someone had an accident, then she may never see them again. Yunfeng, you can rest assured that we will come back safely. Xia Jiqing's face was filled with a confident smile. After we come back, we will go to the Azure Water School to see you. Hearing this, Zhang Yunfeng nodded, good, I will wait for you at the Azure Water School. Cui Haoyan also looked at Dongfang Yu and Gong Shaoqing, brother, you must come back and drink with me. Dongfang Yu and Gong Shaoqing's faces both showed a smile. At that time, we will drink until we are drunk. Cui Haoyan nodded heavily. This time, he couldn't participate in the assessment with Dongfang Yu and the others, it was his regret. He only hoped that they would have a chance to meet again in the future. Although I can't participate in the assessment, I will work hard to cultivate. You must be careful not to be caught up by me. On the other side, Han Xiling also stood beside Han Hongyi. Grandfather, I will leave soon. Han Hongyi nodded slightly. Grandfather believes that with your ability, you will be able to come back safely. At that time, everything you want will be yours. Han Xiling's eyes lit up, and his smile grew even brighter. I will definitely seize this opportunity. Han Shilin emphasized when she talked about seizing the opportunity. She would definitely seize the opportunity to get rid of Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly walked in front of Di Beichen and gazed at his peerlessly handsome face. Her clear eyes were filled with deep affection. Beichen, I'm leaving. Di Beichen nodded slightly and said in a low and suppressed voice, take care. I will. You have to take care of yourself too. The two of them looked at each other, and their eyes were filled with deep love. Their love was stronger than gold. When everyone saw Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen reluctantly say goodbye, their eyes couldn't help but change a bit. They had long known that Di Beichen liked Bailey Hongzhuang very much. Now, looking at this situation, they understood how deep the feelings between the two of them were. Han Shilin clenched her fists, and the fierceness in her eyes intensified. The love between the two of them was like a thorn in her eyes. Bailey Hongzhuang had snatched away the feelings that belonged to her. Han Hongyi patted Han Shiling's shoulder. Shiling, these things will soon cease to exist. Han Shiling nodded, but in her mind, she was thinking about Bailey Hongzhuang. When Bailey Hongzhuang fell into her hands, she would never let Bailey Hongzhuang die so easily. Chapter 1209. Very quickly, everyone gathered together again. Di Beichen stood in front of everyone. The small world is a world of its own. Cultivators from every place will be transported to different places in the small world. However, every team will be together. As you walk from the periphery to the inside, you will gradually meet other cultivators. The final result will be revealed at the center of the small world. As soon as he finished speaking, Di Beichen glanced at the two palace masters. Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing immediately understood and walked in front of everyone, handing a black token to each of them. This is your identity card. After you enter the small world, drip your blood on the card, and your information will be displayed on it. In the next 2 years, the points you obtain from killing the demonic beasts will be recorded on your identity token. Therefore, you must keep this identity token well. Di Beichen's deep and magnetic voice clearly traveled into everyone's ears. I hope that when I go to the small world to welcome you 2 years later, all of you will be able to return safely. Hearing Di Beichen's words, joy flashed across the cultivator's eyes. The fact that the young sect master had said such words to them was enough to make them happy. Now, everyone can set off. Following Di Beichen's words, everyone walked to the center of the teleportation array. The two palace masters and great elder placed their spirit stones on both sides of the teleportation array. Only then could the teleportation array be activated. Immediately after, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest felt a mysterious energy enveloping their bodies. Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze was still fixed on Di Beichen, who was outside the teleportation array. After this separation, they would meet again in 2 years. Di Beichen's figure suddenly disappeared in front of Bailey Hongzhuang. Everyone could only feel that mysterious energy tearing their bodies apart, faintly making them feel uncomfortable. When everyone opened their eyes again, the scene in front of them was completely different. Everyone looked at the situation around them. They were already in a forest. There were dense trees in front of them, and sunlight poured on their bodies through the gaps between the leaves. As far as the eye could see, it was a vast expanse of green that stretched as far as the eye could see. In just a short period of time, everyone felt a burst of heat. The weather in this small world was different from the cool weather in Tiangang's sect. It was very hot here. This is the small world. It doesn't look any different from the outside world. Xia Jiqing's eyes flashed with surprise. She had always been curious about what the world created by the strong would look like. From the looks of it now, that expert was indeed an extraordinary figure. This was a completely different world. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly and looked around. Not only that, the elemental energy here is exceptionally dense, twice that of the outside world. The eyes of Dongfang Yu and the others lit up. A place rich in origin energy was a paradise for cultivators. This meant that cultivating here for 1 year was equivalent to cultivating outside for 2 years. As a result, the gap between them was obvious. It seems that this small world is also a good place. Bai Junyu's sunny and handsome face burst into a happy smile. As long as they could leave the small world safely, their progress would definitely not be small. Hearing this, Han Shiling's expression became even more ferocious. Bailey Hongzhuang, you really are a disgusting woman. She could not believe that Bailey Hongzhuang could still be so proud at this time. Bailey Hongzhuang's smile widened, the ridicule in her eyes deepened. I just like to see you hate me but can't do anything about it. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.